Hello, I want to welcome everybody to Simpleray's webinar on December 18th. Today we're going to cover snowstorms and hurricanes. We're going to let a few more people trickle in here into the webinar. I'm going to plug the website, simpleray.com. You can catch any of our renewable energy consultants, including myself, if you call into 800-8080-SUN. And obviously, if you're looking for some general information, you can just go ahead and email hello@Simpleray. So yeah, the website's really cool. It's a very technical company. I was very impressed at first with how great their website looks in comparison to some other installers that are in the solar renewable game. So it looks like we're just going to wait for a few more people here. I hope everyone's enjoying this beautiful weather in the Midwest. Winter is officially here. It is cold. All right. So it looks like we've got 16. Remember, I will be taking questions at the later part, probably the end of this. So if you have some, drop them in the question area, and I'll tackle the ones that I can do. The ones that I can't, feel free to, email those questions to hello@Simpleray. We should be in pretty good shape. All right, we're at 18. I think we might get started. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and plug the information again one more time, simpleray.com. Our main number is 800-8080-SUN. Obviously, any questions you have during this time or in general, if you'd like to reach out to myself or one of our renewable energy consultants, just go ahead and do hello@simpleray.com. Shoot your questions there. If you'd like to contact me after this or just in general, say hello. I am available at simpleray.com. And I believe that we're going to get this party started. Okay, so today we're going to cover snow, storms, and hurricanes. Obviously, the last one is pretty intense, so we'll stay on that a little bit. A little bit about me. I have been in solar for 4 years strong. 2019 will be my fifth year in solar. I started with residential, focusing mainly on homeowners. It's very small businesses, worked throughout the Michigan market, northern Ohio, parts of Indiana, and then obviously up into the UP. I've worked with houses of worship, farmers, obviously homeowners, small businesses, large businesses, some educational projects, some for small projects for universities. I've worked with students, I've worked with teachers. Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. I'm very passionate about solar and very passionate about Simpleray. As far as Simpleray goes, I've worked with a lot of EPCs, engineering and procurement and construction companies in the Midwest, on both of the coasts, being the West and East Coast, and by far some of the greatest people, some of the brightest minds, especially from an engineering perspective, and some of the hardest workers from an installation perspective. Okay, so we're going to get this moving here. Okay, so a little bit about solar. Basically, you have PV, which is photovoltaic cells that are going to capture the energy of the sun, and they're going to go ahead and turn that into electricity. Electricity that, depending on what state you're in and utility that you work with, you could shoot it back to the grid, put it into a battery, however you want to do it. Today we're going to talk also about solar versus weather and how they affect each other, and then talk a little bit about why we place solar arrays the way that we do and the direction that we do. Okay, so the arrays are mounted in a couple different ways. You have the standard roof mount, which you'll see a lot in residential, a lot in some of the smaller business. Obviously farmers, hog farmers. Smaller farms rather than the huge solar farms that we look at. They will be roof mounted. There are plenty of different clips and ways that we mount them to the roof. You know, from there, they're mounted on a racking system. It's all very, very well engineered and neatly placed. So it actually has some aesthetically pleasing designs as well. You know, everything that we do, every job that I've ever worked at, you know, in solar, engineering is a very important part of it. We have to take into account different building codes. We have to take into account, you know, how much these things weigh, you know, pounds per square inch. All of this stuff is very important. The design teams are stellar at Simpleray, very impressive. And then obviously, you know, boots on the ground. That's one of the most important things with solar is how well we can install this thing is one of the main reasons of why they last so long. And obviously using tier 1 materials. When we say tier 1, we mean top of the line panels. Those are all very important, and obviously, you know, very important to the region that you're in, and what kind of weather they're going to be dealing with. Okay, so here's the fun stuff. When sunlight hits these panels, they're going to create electricity. All right, how we harness that electricity, how we store that electricity is going to be different. You know, however your system is built out, however you discuss those things with your renewable energy consultant. If sunlight is unable to reach these panels, meaning there's cloud, a pesky hawk, a helicopter, you never know, then they're not going to produce. Okay. The basic facts: sun's got to hit the cells. Cells have to be able to capture enough of that to create the energy. And sunlight will poke through even the pesky clouds. Probably not a helicopter, probably not a hawk, and hopefully you're not dealing with dinosaurs or anything, because that would be crazy. So here is the, you know, this is kind of one of the main things that we want to cover in this whole webinar today. One of the big things, obviously, I grew up in the Midwest. I know a lot about it. Snow is probably one of the #1 questions I get, past, do we get enough sun? Well, I think everybody knows in the Midwest that corn grows every season, so we definitely get enough sun. But snow is an issue. You know, overall, the snowfall is not going to affect your energy production as much as you would really think. One of the big things in designing these systems, what we all focus on in this industry, is really production. And we take into account the area that you're in, the state you're in, the county that you're in. All of those go into an account of, into our consideration of production, right? So when our engineering team, when our design team works together, they're going to take into all, you know, that weather data from about 60 years. I believe some of our softwares have NASA information from that long, you know, Farmer's Almanac, all that stuff gets pushed into a pot. We mix it all up, and we have a good understanding of what this system is going to produce for the next 25 years at least. Heavy blizzards, you know, yes, they're going to happen, specifically in Iowa, specifically in Michigan, Illinois, you know, specifically in the Midwest. We're going to have blizzards. How often they appear every year, you know, that's something that, you know, we just take into account the snowfall that existed for the past 60 years, average that out, and find our best bet. Hail. Hail is definitely going to be not as big of an issue as you would think, but not necessarily the greatest thing in the world. So an average hailstorm is unlikely to do significant damage. One of the main reasons is because these panels are made from tempered glass. Certain manufacturers have them rated up to well over 150 mile-an-hour winds. And yes, solar arrays have lasted through multiple hailstorms. One of my favorite stories about hail is the state of Colorado, which, if you're unaware, the city of Denver, I believe, gets just under 300 sunny days out of the year. So it's one of the hottest markets in solar. One of the problems they had about 15 years ago is the city of Denver and the surrounding areas gets a lot of hail. There's a couple times a year that the hailstorms are very intense. So much so that what they will do in the city of Denver and the surrounding areas, that when there's a hailstorm, car dealerships will have what's called a hail sale, meaning that all of the cars that were parked outside will have large, massive dents in them, and they'll probably be around half off, you know, MSRP. The relating to that story is that since then, these panels and these manufacturers have created what I consider tanks out of these things. You know, tempered glass, surrounded, you know, basically encased in a steel or aluminum frame. You know, some of the companies I've worked with in the past, you know, you know, they've had problem to drop these things on the ground, drop them on grass. I mean, they don't break. If there is, you know, some shattering that's involved, I mean, all of this is safety tempered glass. So these things are really tanks. I mean, I've had my hands on probably too many of them throughout the time, and I'm always very impressed with their construction. This is a nice tidbit. I didn't know this, but you know, following a severe hailstorm, the inspection of the National Renewable Energy Laboratory revealed that just one panel out of 3,000. To give you some headspace, depending on the size of those panels, I mean, that's probably 3/4 of a megawatt. So we're looking at a solar farm, and if that was only one panel that was then damaged out of a hailstorm, we're probably not as concerned about hail. Okay, everyone's having fun. I know I am. So yeah, so cloudy days are definitely going to be an issue. You know, they even issue in mature markets. Surprisingly enough, it does get cloudy in LA time to time. But that doesn't necessarily mean that our panels are not going to produce. That doesn't mean that your system isn't going to produce. Will it be a reduced production on a cloudy day? Absolutely. But you know, ever since I was a kid, going to the beach, you know, being out in the sunshine, even if it is a cloudy day, you can still get burned, which is a perfect example of how those UV, you know, radiation, how that power is getting through those clouds regardless. You know, that's just something to keep in mind. I've definitely gotten burned on cloudy days. Rain's really not going to be a big deal. You know, one thing for sure is, you know, depending on how your system is installed, depending on, you know, the racking solution, there's going to be somewhat of an angle. So you're not going to be too worried about puddling water, which is always a very, pools of water and puddling water are very, you know, that's an issue with construction in general, especially when you get into flat roof and flat. But these panels are, you know, all of these cells are protected by that layer of tempered glass. You have somewhat of a slight or, you know, somewhat of an intense angle. So you're going to have that run down. Some panel manufacturers have even little gutter streams, literally, that they will do around the aluminum casing. They will have a way for the water to pool off to the right and left and then shoot down and then get off of the panel, but really not going to be an issue. Thunderstorms are thunderstorms. You know, if I don't want to get too much into that, thunderstorms are dangerous. So, you know, don't think they're not. But yeah, and it looks like, you know, we offer a free cleaning service as well. So that's super fabulous. Okay, hurricanes. Here's the fun one, right? You know, my whole thing on hurricanes is, and this this is just my personal opinion, but what I would say about it is probably, you know, if a hurricane is headed your way, I would say the least of your concern should be your solar array. I would say that family, loved ones, friends, obviously animals and pets, that's really what you should be concerned with. The other thing is too is, you know, a lot of these solar systems are what we call grid tied. If the grid's going to be damaged by that hurricane anyway, you're not going to have too much concern about those panels shooting power to that that grid anyway, especially if it's extremely damaged. It is true that a lot of these racking manufacturers will what's called building code listed. They'll test their products for, you know, for hurricanes, for massive storms. They do that, one, because, you know, for all types of insurance reasons, they have to be able to prove that their products can withstand a certain amount, depending on where they're installed. You know, if you install a solar array in Florida, it's going to be a little bit different than installing one in Iowa with wind loads, obviously snow. It snows in Iowa. So those, to make a racking solution, to make a panel, you want it to be fairly universal. You don't want to have to make a different panel for Florida than you do for Iowa. You don't have to make a different panel for a different racking solution for Iowa in comparison to Florida, in comparison to Texas. You want to make something that's going to pretty much last anywhere. So that's kind of how they do it in general. So that's kind of my take on hurricanes. I mean, my whole thing with hurricanes is I just want people to be safe. And believe me, if the last thing that should be on your mind in a hurricane is what's going on with your solar array. Okay, this is true. I've seen solar arrays drop from 2 stories, and they've lasted. I've seen trucks drive over solar panels by accident, and they've been fine. I've seen solar arrays bend a little bit and not crack. Yeah, they're made from tempered glass. The racking solutions are very beastly. Very impressive. I've been in construction long enough to know that some products are not nearly as well designed and manufactured as these. Yeah, and as long as I mean, that's really everything with solar. It's not a new thing. Solar has very mature markets. California, they've been installing solar for a long time. I believe I met an elderly man not too long ago that said he put his system in 1973, and he averaged out the cost was $8 a watt or $10 a watt, something insane. But I mean, his solar system is still pumping, and he installed it. So it's very important that you do this with professionals, that engineering is done correctly. All of these things have to be transferred immediately to the nearest code. All building permits are going to be subjected to those engineering drawings. They're going to be subjected, it very scrutinized, specifically in commercial installations, to those weather loads, snow loads, PSI, depending on the racking solution, how it's anchored, to the building. Yeah, and the Simpleray products, being around the product lines in solar long enough to know what tier 1 really means. When you have warranties, how good is the company that's offering the warranty? When you have, production analysis, how good are the people that are doing that? That's one of the reasons that I was very excited to join the Simpleray team, because they take the important stuff very, very seriously, and they have fun with the fun stuff. And I think that that's what solar should really be about. So this is always a thing I say with everybody. I'm not an insurance guy. I'm a solar guy or solar girl, whatever we want to call ourselves. It's very important to remember that if your solar is damaged, and it is damaged by something that is not a production guarantee or a workmanship warranty guarantee, then it's going to have to be covered up to some kind of insurance plan. From a residential perspective, we see that a lot. We see, customers putting that underneath their homeowner's insurance. And if anything happens, a tree falls. Now, obviously, we're not going to install a lot of systems underneath trees because shading is a big issue. We're not going to get the production we want out of it. But if a tree limb did fall on your roof and crack through your solar array and then crack into your house, that's all going to most likely be a homeowner's insurance issue. And you're going to, have to speak to them about that. Now, again, all of this stuff is, from my perspective, I cover all of this stuff. It's very important that people understand they understand what they're buying. They understand what they're investing to. They really get, there's a bunch of different categories with solar. You have tax credits, you have insurance questions, you have depreciation on some commercial systems. You have a lot of things to think about. So it's important that you encapsulate all of that into one conversation or multiple conversations if needed, and you are able to understand. And the person that does that, what we call the tip of the spear, is really going to be the renewable energy consultant, someone like myself, some of the other great guys and girls we have on the team that are really going to help you navigate some of these questions that you have. And because we're experts at this, because we've been in solar, we know how many different things are involved. That's what we're here for. So those are always great questions. I tell everyone, it makes my job harder, but please ask the questions because we're the people that have the answers. Okay, so placement. Obviously, placement's going to be huge. Now, as you can see in this beautiful picture here, I'm hoping the majority of these are southern facing. Now, with the production of panels nowadays, the size of panels nowadays, I believe there's some manufacturers have 400 watt panels. I know that some of the products that we use, Hanwha, it has a 370, I believe, 350 watt panels. Are you really going to be able to get a lot of production? So nowadays with optimizers, which is a small component that really creates as much DC power that the panel can get out of it. Nowadays with optimizers, the sizing of the panel, we're able to create, if needed, we can actually do an east and west facing array. I know that residential, it has to happen sometimes, but realistically, what Simpleray is trying to do is create a large array that's going to offset, whether it's commercial or a large residence or, an apartment housing building, whatever. we really want to put that array south facing. It's going to give us as much sunlight as possible, specifically in those summer days, and as much as we can get out of the winter days. That's why south facing is so important. Like I said, though, I mean, with where we're at with solar right now, it's still very capable to do an east and west facing array. It really just comes down to the numbers, right? If the production value of that and the cost of installing the system can be married, where the customer is agreeable and the payback period is okay, then those are it. But other than that, I mean, we're always trying to put stuff south. That's, at least I hope so. I hope my boss doesn't get mad at me about that. Yeah, and this is my whole thing. As I said, I started in residential, so I have a very good understanding of homeowner insurance, roof warranties, how all this stuff really affects that. And these are one of my favorite things to talk about, which I guess makes me a pretty cool guy. But overall, it's definitely going to protect your roof no matter what kind of roof. You have standing seam, even if you have a flat roof area. Really the hardest hit thing is going to be an asphalt shingle against UV radiation. That's why you start to see an asphalt shingle curl up. It's because the UV rays have just been hitting it for 10, 15, 20 years, and just all that elasticity is basically gone. So you're just going to watch it curl up. You're going to see the granulars of asphalt start to fall off. Now, if you had a solar panel on top of that thing for 10 years, you wouldn't see that fraying. You wouldn't see that decay. What you would see is a very well intact shingle right underneath the solar panels. That's also not going to have snow sitting on it for a large period of time, right? When snow melts, it turns into moisture, and then moisture obviously gets heated up, and then you have that expansion and contraction. That could be a large issue with any kind of roof too. Well, that's not really going to happen with solar panels. They have that tempered glass layer over top of it that it's going to really protect those cells, but also protect your roof at the same time. Yeah, and I mean, overall, a common misconception is, oh, well, if I put solar panels on, it's going to negate my roof warranty. Like I was saying earlier, I mean, there are mature markets with solar. They've been doing this for over 20 years now. Everything that we install is either National Electrical Code listed or UL building listed. Those are important terms because instead of having to call the contractor and ask him, what kind of roof this was, or, when did you install it and all that stuff, literally every one of these manufacturers has a letter that they can send that specifically states that this product will not negate a roof warranty. I've done that a lot in the past. I've made sure of that because we've actually, I'm sure we've installed systems on brand new roofs, and we plan to do that much more. And it's very important that there's synergy between the two companies, the two manufacturers, and the two products to ensure that the customer is protected. So the durability of these things is mind-boggling. Overall, a particularly bad storm can definitely cause some damage. I mean, we're not here to tell you fallacies. That's bad storms are out there. We've obviously seen it in the past couple of years. The intensity of these, these environmental events have been getting more and more catastrophic. Solar is probably one of the tougher things that are installed in a house. I will say that. Because you have attachments to roofing material, whether they're steel or whether they're going into, wood rafters, you're having an extra layer of, protection and an extra layer really of just a building material that you didn't have before, So I'm not saying that, Maria is going to rip through it. It's going to leave your solar and everything's going to be fine. There have been instances in the state of Florida where, as I said earlier, the placement, especially in a state like Florida, we're going to try to go south facing. There was a picture that I saw that showed a neighborhood that was there was a lot of solar in the neighborhood. The back half of those homes that was, north or northwest facing, the roof was completely ripped off. The rafters were exposed. And on the southern facing part of the house, there was a solar array that still had all the asphalt beneath it, still had all of the sub roofing. So, I mean, that is something you see, if wind whips up underneath these things, some of these are lag bolted into the rafters, depending on how we get in, how we attach to your roof. But that's legit. I mean, that I have seen that picture. That picture does exist. You know, those things are real. It does add a whole nother layer of protection. And again, you know, you can always reach out to us. We have, you know, we love solar. So these questions, we are always excited about these questions and how we can answer them. What we got next here? Okay. So this is the verdict, right? Everybody ready? So bad weather can affect production. It's unlikely to affect your electric bill. Like I've said before, it really comes down to the people that you purchase solar from, the people that, you know, if you vetted them, if they've vetted production of the system, if they've vetted the products that they're going to install, if they've taken pride in what they do, and that's directly from me, from being in solar long enough and being around it and being really enticed and interested in solar long enough. If someone takes pride in what they do, you can trust them and they will fix the problems if there are any in the future. But we take all of this stuff into account for our production schedules and our production modeling. Bad weather is going to be all over the country, and internationally. So it's just something we have to take into account. Solar arrays built by Simpleray and a bunch of other people are definitely built to withstand snow, storms, hail, wind, rain, you name it. So I mean, it's there. It's there to stay. You know, there's a reason these things are warranted for 25 years because we're planning on having them there for a lot longer. If solar arrays weren't able of handling all of this stuff, then they wouldn't have put them on satellites and put them into orbit for the past 40 years. It's something to keep in mind. Solar works. It works so well that if you've ever made a cellular phone call, watched a television network, or shot a text message or shot an email, then you've already used solar. So, just keep that in mind. And I'm pretty sure space has got some intense stuff going out there too. Now, we don't sell those solar panels because they're probably $1 million a pop. But so if there are any questions, I'm going to take a few questions here, that are coming through from the chat area. Obviously, if you have any questions for us, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. As I started this off with, you have simpleray.com. That's our number, 800-8080-SUN. Just go ahead and hello@Simpleray. If you have some just random questions, we'll get you linked up with one of our renewable energy consultants in the area. My name is Steve Stone. I am a Simpleray human being from now on. I'm a big fan of Simpleray. I absolutely adore and love solar. I think it's the future of what we need to do to at least help the future generations of this earth. My direct email is stevestone@simpleray.com. There's also my direct dial, which I'll have an Illinois and an Iowa number here pretty soon, but my direct dial right now is 248-556-1737. Again, that's Steve Stone at Simpleray, and let's take some questions. Okay, this is always a big one, which I am a super big fan of. So are there still tax benefits available for solar panels? That is a resounding yes. The 30% tax credit that's applicable to any system that you buy in America, it's an investment tax credit. It's basically the American government saying, go ahead and invest in solar. We think that this is helpful. So remember, it's a 30% tax credit. Remember, I always tell this to people, you need to speak with your CPA, how you can take advantage of that. As I've done in the past, I've owned a few businesses of my own. Taxes are specific to individuals. So it's always important to speak to your CPA about that. But yeah, 30% tax credit to the end of 2019. Once that goes down, it's going to drop down to, I believe, 26%. And then in 2021, it's going to be 22%. And then it will potentially go away. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, if you're trying to get a solar system, give me a call now. Okay, I'm going to take this is one that we talked about a little bit. Will installing solar damage my roof? No. If we do, I'm not going to go too far into this because I think it's something you should really discuss with one of us. But if we are using a penetrating solution, as I stated, all of those solutions and all of those racking manufacturers will guarantee that their product, one, will not leak or really damage your roof, but two, will also not negate your roof warranty. I think that's very important. And it's an extremely intelligent question that you asked. Roofs are pretty important. We feel the same way. So there is a question here that I'm going to go ahead and, oh, okay, that's a good one. Did the tariffs on foreign-made solar panels affect the price? That is a good question. Overall, at this point, no. We had a lot of manufacturers that were putting, basically preparing for the tariff. So they were loading up all of their warehouses, and it's actually solar panel prices have dropped a little bit. Now, overall, is it going to affect them? Yes. I mean, it's important to keep in mind that solar is a very resilient industry. Almost as much as the people that work in it, like all the people at Simpleray. But there is an entire webinar that you can watch that's completely focused on the tariff webinar. That gets into a lot of economic stuff, and Lewis Butler is probably the guy you want to talk to about that. But there is an effect. It hasn't been as immediate as I believe everyone in the solar industry was expecting. And if anything, it's probably kicked up a lot of dust on the battery stuff, to be honest with you. Okay, this is a good one, especially for people in the Midwest. Is there a heavy snowfall? If there's heavy snowfall, will the added weight in solar panels be too heavy for my roof? Great question. The reason I say it's a great question is because that's definitely something that I've dealt with doing solar, for this period of time in the Midwest. So that's one of the first things that we have to learn about your roof, your area, and what we call snow loads, okay? There's a little story I'll give you real quick about this specific topic. So when I started one of the companies I worked with in Detroit, we did a lot of solar installations down in the lower part of the mitten. Well, the UP of Michigan gets about 4.5 feet to 5 feet of snow every winter. So that snow load is going to be very different from an engineering perspective than what we had to do downstate. It's very similar from southern Illinois to northern Illinois. Iowa, I'm sure, just gets snow everywhere. So I'm kidding. But overall, all of those questions have to be answered, and your local building code, municipality, the state building code, the national building code, those are going to definitely have to, or those answers are going to have to be answered, even get into construction. So that goes into all of our engineering. Our engineering team is top notch. They're very, very, very successful. And they take into account literally, pounds per square inch, snow loads, all of that stuff is in each area, each building code. That's a great question. And we have to answer that every time we want to do an array. I think that we're good. Okay. I want to thank everybody. I think half an hour was great. I want to thank Simpleray. I want to thank everybody that paid attention. There is a whole solar panel tariff. There's more webinars that you should probably check out with other renewable energy consultants that talk about maybe even some other topics that may affect your interest or your solar array. Feel free to shoot me an email, stevestone@simpleray.com. This is me signing off. Thank you so much. Bye now.